All right, so now we'll get into the session. So this is, as I mentioned, it's the seventh success circle that we've had in 2025. Today is all about effortless presence, showing up with flow, not force. We have Doug Westfall here. I'm super excited to have you, Doug. We were just talking before the session. I believe that I've worked with you for over 15 years in various places, in various roles. So, I'm just so happy that you're here today. I'm really, really excited for this session. We're going to learn a lot about executive presence and differentiating ourselves in customer success, whether you're looking for a role in customer success or currently in customer success. How do you differentiate yourself? Doug is volunteering here today for the CX Exchange. I'm just super happy to have you, Doug. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. So I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Doug.
Yes, no problem. Thank you, Emily. It is really an honor and a privilege to be here today with everyone. So Doug Westfall, I'm a leadership coach. I typically partner with individuals and teams to achieve exceptional results with clarity and ease. And as Emily was referring, I've spent 25 years in corporate leadership across multiple tech companies, including the time that Emily and I overlapped at Autodesk. And there, when I was at Autodesk, I did lead the rollout of our customer success and partner success teams worldwide. I worked also really closely with our partners as we were moving from a permanent to a subscription model, and they had to really embrace customer success. So I have a deep appreciation for the vital role that everyone plays in the connective tissue between customers and your company's products and services. So I do want to get that out there. So thank you for being here. You want to go to the next slide, Emily?
Yes, thanks, Doug.
So what I'm going to be talking about is maybe a little bit off kilter to some of the things that you've had heard before, but I'm a firm believer as you move your way up the ladder that, performance always is essential, but presence also is essential. And, the customer success market, like, is more competitive than ever. And everyone, out there has a degree of capability of managing accounts. But I feel like the area where you can really distinguish yourself is make others feel trust and clarity in every interaction. So I have a client that I worked with about a year ago, and he was looking for a new job. He was sending resumes and, working on LinkedIn like crazy. But it became really clear to me that his emphasis was trying to impress and really trying to show off. And so in the process of working with him, we changed from, we didn't change his resume or his LinkedIn at all, but we just changed his mindset and his attitude to be more curious and open. And so instead of like looking for the job, he just became more interested and curious and open. And we really worked on his presence when he was working or talking to someone for networking. And, in the end, he said, Doug, I really believe presence speaks louder than performance. So showing up with some sense of groundedness and not struggling is a real essential thing that I'd like to focus on. Could you go to the next slide, please, Emily? So the one thing, having hired thousands of people myself and some in the customer success area, but leaders hire foresight. And when I say foresight, it's moving from this reactive sort of thing to a strategic attitude. And so the example is when someone asks you a question where you can be reactive, where you say something like, I manage churn issues for 10 enterprise customers. On the other hand, a strategic answer would be, I identified adoption gaps that improved retention by 15% and led to a 300K in expansion. So when you're talking to a client or you're in an interview, you just don't react, you drive business impact. And so there's a framework that I train all the folks that I work with. It's called the fixed frame future. And it's the fixed frame future model is a simple conversation pivot that makes you sound more like a strategic partner instantly. So the step one is to fix, and it's to acknowledge the issue. So it would be something like this. Hey, thank you, Mrs. Client. I get it. That bug is frustrating. Let's get that handled. So you're identifying the emotion, you're identifying the issue. So you're going to fix it, but then you frame it, which is the second step, which is to broaden the lens. And you can say, while we fix it, we can zoom out for a second. How is this impacting your Q3 goals? And so that's just taking a step back and framing it in a different way. And then the future, step 3, is link it to outcomes. If we solve this root issue, we can help you hit your onboarding targets faster. Would we want to build a 90-day roadmap together to help us do this? And again, you become a much bigger partner to this customer. So this is the fixed frame future model. It also works in interviews. And so if you're in an interview situation and they, ask a question, hey, what kind of renewals have you handled? You say, yes, I've handled renewals, but what I'm most proud of is how I've handled and tied renewals to customer ROI. Because really the best customer success managers, the CSMs, you just don't fix problems. You're helping redefine the problem worth fixing. So as I said at the beginning, customer success leaders don't hire firefighters, they hire foresight. Emily, would you go to the next slide for me?
Absolutely, yes.
So the other thing that I like to review is, the importance of confidence isn't based on how much you know, but it's a little bit on your energy and your ability to be grounded. So one of the folks I coach was a senior customer success manager who kept missing getting promotions. And she was super sharp, very high powered, and absolutely deserved to move up to director. But it became clear as we were working together that she was really a fast talker, and she had a tendency in executive meetings to over-explain, and she would lose the room. And so what I worked with her on was kind of doing what I do from time to time, is pausing before speaking. And that way it allowed her just to come across to project a different calm confidence. And we worked on some other things, but that was one of the key things that really got her eventually promoted within 6 months. So again, you need to know your information, you need to be technically capable, but the other side of it is kind of how you're showing up. And so presence isn't about being loud, it's also about being grounded. And your ability to stay centered when others get scattered can be a real game changer. So it's a way that we'll talk about in a minute here on how to do a better job doing that. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I just have to say, Doug, that Zen attitude that you've had, I've always really appreciated. We've had several times where, I come and like harried with a problem, and you're like, hey, like let's talk it out. So I really appreciate that about you.
I appreciate your comment. Yeah, I do think sometimes it's hard in the moment to really kind of take a step back and kind of ascertain what's really going on. But if you're able to adopt this practice, and we'll do something real quickly here, just a short practice, because to do so, you don't have to go climb on a Himalayan mountain and practice meditation for 3 months. You can do it pretty quickly. So here's an example. Let's just try to do this for 15 seconds, because there's a couple key sayings I always repeat with the people that work for me and with my clients is, one, you have to be loose to produce. So basically you need to be relaxed. You got to be a little bit to be able to be at your best, being loose to produce. And the other thing I always lead with is, the moment you breathe, you lead. So let's just practice breathing just for a quick second. So I'm going to just ask you right now to just stand up a little bit straighter in your chair. Thank you. And then, instead of being in our heads, try to get into your body. And the way I always recommend to get in your body is, the first place I go is I pay attention to my feet. And I just feel my feet on the ground. And then once I feel the gravitational pull around my feet, then I come and I just pay attention to my breath. So take a nice deep breath and really pay attention to the inhale and the exhale. And that can also slow you down for a moment. And then what I would ask you to do is recall what your purpose is. Why are you here? What are you trying to accomplish? So my purpose would be, in this moment, to connect with you as a community and share some information that I hope will maybe make a difference in your future. And then when you come back from this, re-engage. If you're stressed out beforehand, maybe just try to make a shift and re-engage with curiosity. What wants to happen next? So again, it's a real simple process. You can do this in a matter of like 3 or 4 seconds when you're practiced with it. And I had one of my clients who was going in for an interview, and typically before the interview, they would get really, really nervous, and the anxiety would show up. They would have trouble breathing. So we started practicing this, when you breathe, you lead practice. And so when they were able to walk in a little calmer, a little clearer, it helped them sell themselves, to represent themselves. And more importantly, when you're clear yourself, it helps you connect with others better. So just remember, the moment you breathe, you lead. All right. If you could go to the next slide, please, Emily. So the other thing that kind of ties to this, not being reactive, is being able to inspire trust. And so if you can shift from reacting to a situation, maybe doing a real quick regroup and grounding, then you can have greater strategic influence. You can shift what you talk about. So from tasks to possibly outcomes, and from support to a partnership, to relationship, right? So that is the shift of building trust. And then there's the other shift on how you show up. So maybe you felt a little tense, but if you relax a little bit and feel your feet on the ground, you can flow. And from force, where you're kind of pushing or grinding something, right? It's to a more relaxed sense of trust. And so if you can combine the two, I guarantee you will stand out in any room, whether it's a customer call or a final interview. Flow and alignment isn't luck. It is the thing that will really separate you and inspire trust. All right, so we're going to go and we're going to do a little deeper dive on this. So this is a tool that I give my all my clients, and afterwards I'll make this available to anyone on this call that wants to. I'll make sure Emily has it. But I call it the flow reset tool. And the idea of the flow reset tool is basically to help someone really get into a state where they're working from a place of clarity and ease. So if you're ever in a point where you're feeling like stuck or tensed or overwhelmed, I recommend that you use this as a little reference sheet, because it will help you find that way to reconnect with your natural kind of confidence. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you wouldn't mind closing your eyes, and I'll just quickly walk you through this. And again, it just helps to get the visual stimulation out of your mind so you can really focus on being in your body. So the first thing is, once you close your eyes, sit up a little straight, and then just notice where you're feeling tightness. So typically for most people, the place where they realize quickly they feel tightness is either in their face or their shoulders. And so, if you feel tightness there, is it possible just to relax and surrender and soften to it? And typically what I do with my shoulders, because I hold a lot of stress in my shoulders, I'll kind of lift my shoulders up and I'll drop them. And that will help me start kind of releasing that resistance. And then the next point is to get clarity on, what is your intent? What is my intention right now? What is the deeper thing that you're trying to do? Yes, you're trying to help a client, resolve an issue, but maybe part of it is also for you to be of service and for you to help the client understand the other things that are more important than just the issue at hand. So, what is your real intention right now? And then the next question is, where am I right now? And this is the question of being in this present moment, because part of having presence is not worrying about what happened right before this call or what's going to happen right after this call. It's being present in this very moment. So asking yourself, am I here in this moment right now? And then by doing so, you can come into your breath. And this is where you pay attention to your breath and kind of capture your breath coming in and out. And really pay close attention to your breath. And sometimes you can even find your breath slowing down. And then the key is just letting it unfold, just letting this kind of relaxation, this breath unfold, and just figure out, is there anywhere I'm still fighting, or can I just relax into this moment? And if you do feel like you're really still tight, ask yourself, what small shift would help me trust instead of push? And then sense everything that's going on in your body. Take a couple more breaths, and then come out of this current place you're at. So in all candor, I do this every morning. I've been doing this for years, but it's a practice. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it can be invaluable for, handling stressful situations and kind of staying in the eye of the hurricane, right? There can be all kinds of stuff going on around you, but by doing this and getting really clear on your intention and relaxing a little bit into the moment, it can really help make a shift. So, good. Would you go to the next slide, please, Emily? So I just want to recap. I really want to make sure there's practical things that you take out from this workshop. And so the first one is to stand out in the market. Remember to attempt to shift from reactive to strategics. Yeah, and outcomes are really more critical over activity. So keep thinking about the strategic outcomes you're trying to do. Then the model of fixed frame future is really powerful. So you're able to make a pivot for your client, or you're able to make a pivot when you're in an interview process, because partnership is going to be always going beyond the current issue that you're framing. And then lead with presence. Calm gives you credibility. So when you're more calm, you have more trust and you're more credible. And, the flow reset can be really powerful. There, you can do it like the short one we did right at the beginning of the presentation, or you can do the longer version, which also can be extremely powerful. So thank you for your time. And I look forward to listening a little bit of the takeaways from the breakout rooms. So Emily, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I had mentioned this previously, but I've been in the job market for the last year and a half, and I wish so much that I had had this, when things were getting harried, and just taking a moment to take that breath, and reframe myself in that moment. So what I'm thinking is that maybe we just have us have a discussion, and not go into breakout rooms. Does that sound okay for everybody? Fran agrees.
Yep. Sounds
Yeah.
good to me. I see we do have a question from Fatima in the chat too. So I don't know if we want to just open it up all in general, or do we want to just answer the question and then go into the prompts here?
I'm thinking maybe open it up,
Okay.
and we can Fatima can ask the question live, or we can ask it for her. I will stop sharing right now, but I do want to just mention, the two topics that we're going to discuss: one, personal insight from Doug's talk, and then one shift you'd like to make on how you show up. So I'll stop sharing and we'll just have a group discussion. So Fatima, did you want to ask the question live, or did you want us to ask it for you?
No, I can ask the question. Thank you, Doug. This was super helpful, and just being able to do the small act of going into the place that you're hoping for us to operate from. That was great. That was amazing. It's not many times that we feel that way, in a session. So, my question was more so regarding when you're in an interview. Sometimes I feel like there's a little bit more of that nervous energy, but to build on that nervous energy, to be able to encapsulate as much of the experience, as much of the skills, as much as it translates to the values of the company and then the position that they're advertising. So it's kind of a guessing game. Sometimes it's a little bit more, direct as to what you want to accomplish. Feels like having a Zen attitude most times does not lend favorably to those interviews. So just kind of wondering if you feel like you still think it can be valuable to approach it with a much more calm, less eager and nervous and enthusiastic energy, as you might say, or maybe if you have any other recommendations on that.
Yeah, no, interesting question. So is it appropriate to come in with Zen energy in an interview situation, especially given that they're looking for someone that probably shows up as like getting a lot of stuff done? So first, I would not say this process necessarily will provide you always with Zen energy. It's really just to get centered. So you can come back who you are, but you're just a little bit more aligned,
Mhm.
because a lot of times we're spending all our time in our head, and our head just spins. So getting in your body and your heart and your body sometimes helps you be like just that much clearer on how you're going to come across. The other
Mhm.
thing, absolutely, is the idea of it is when you're centered in yourself, you're not going to be so conscious of what's going on with you. You can connect better with the interview people, the committee. And, I'm sure you have the knowledge, but I typically tell my clients, you need to mirror whatever the energy is in the room, right? But if you're
Right.
really self-conscious and you're like, I hope I do really well, and I hope I remember all this information, but if you can come in a little bit more grounded,
Mhm.
not necessarily Zen-like, you can connect better to the audience. And this can be a customer, or it can
Right.
be someone that you're interviewing with. It allows you to respond and drop into whatever their energy is. So I feel like it can be extremely valuable when you use it correctly. So I'm not really recommending for you to get into a meditative state. I'm using it
Right.
more just to get centered. So when you're there,
Mhm.
you can really connect. Does that make sense? Do you have
Yeah,
a
it
follow-up
does.
question? Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
And it is really good for you to recognize. So emotional awareness, I'm sure most everyone probably in this call has heard of EQ. Emotional awareness is a really important aspect. And so being emotionally aware and where you're coming from, if you're coming from fear or anxiety, or instead of being at ease and open to learning, it's a completely different sort of energy level. So just being able to check in on yourself, where am I coming from at this moment, is a really powerful tool.
Mhm.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Fran? Yeah.
You're on mute.
I know, I just had
Oh,
to
sorry.
unmute myself. Thank you all. Doug, really, really enjoyed everything you said. I took some notes, although I was trying to stay very focused on what you were saying. But what do you do when, for me, I'm in a really precarious financial situation because of my long unemployment.
Mm.
And I'm sorry if that's TMI for everyone, but I show up here as me. And so every interview is like, it feels like it's, you know, so critical. And even trying to get centered before, I listened to the calm app before and I try to stay calm. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I have to make this work
Mm-hmm.
because if I don't, you know, will I lose my apartment, that kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
help, how do I disassociate from that long enough to show them what I know because I have a lot of experience. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate the question. It's a a real, it's a reality. And so the question I would have for you, Fran, if you could just stay on just for a little bit longer, is there a moment where you notice that come on? So that this is part of the self-awareness, is like, okay, you listen to the calm, but then you go into your interview, and then, you know, that part of you that's afraid, do you notice that come up?
Oh yeah. Like I had a third round interview. I'm waiting to hear if I actually get moved to the final round at the end of the week. And I could feel myself, like I was starting to blank on the words I wanted to use. It was just like a deer in the headlights. And I stumbled through it. And I mean, I approached every question with, oh, this is a wonderful question. Thank you. And I started really strong. And then I just kind of froze right in the middle. And I find that's happened in several interviews. And it's because I feel like if I don't get this,
Right.
I'm lost.
No, I hear you. And yeah, no, I
And,
appreciate your
I'm sorry to
vulnerability.
be so
No,
honest.
no, that's great. I appreciate the vulnerability, and you're not alone. A lot of folks right now are struggling to look for a job. So here's what I would coach you on is, one, as you do, when you recognize it, there's this thing that happens in our brain that just is the critic. And as soon as you start, like, flub up on something, and it could be something that they don't even see, but in your brain, you flub up, or you say something that you didn't come out quite the way you wanted it to. And there's the follow-up. Okay, now I'm going to not move on to the next, right? I'm not going to move on to the next level in the interview process. And it starts getting to be a catastrophe. And so what I would recommend you do is practice whenever that happens. That's the point where you really need to have it in your repertoire to take a deep breath. And it doesn't take long, but take a deep breath. And that's why I train a lot of my folks to go down to their feet, because your head is spiraling, and then it can set off emotions, right? You might tighten, your heart might be going. And so going down to your feet and just take a breath, and, it's some form of, it's going to be okay. I got this. There's got to be some inner sort of coaching that you need to practice, though, Fran, before you're in that place. You need to kind of visualize, or, work with a friend or whatever, and just say, okay, let's do this job interview. I'm going to do it. And then at a certain point, you say something like we all do. It doesn't come out right. And you see that thing come online in your brain, and you feel your shoulders go up or whatever. That's the point where I want you just to take a breath, kind of maybe pull yourself down a little bit. Some people go to their belly, some go to their feet, and just say, this is fine. This is going to be okay. And then you start over again. And doing the role play and practicing that, it will go away. But it takes practice, like just expecting it to happen when you're in the interview. It's probably, reading about it or thinking about it's not going to work. And I can say I've been in that place, like in speaking to large groups. I've been in that place where suddenly I just get, I get just like a deer in headlights, and I'm like, oh, what do I say next? And there's 2,000 people here. And so the key is, again, just being able to kind of just take a deep breath and ground yourself. Does that make any sense at all, Fran?
Oh, it sure does. And, you know, I mean, I'm 66. I've had decades of interviews, and
Sure.
but I haven't been in a position like this, where, you know, I'm just terrified of, you know, everything.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, that really helps a lot. And I will ask friend, because I haven't been asking friends to role play, because I figured, you know, I know how to interview. I mean, I've asked a couple people, but I will definitely take that. And thank you so much for all of the time you devoted to my
No,
question.
no, it's an important question, and it still happens to me. So, like the idea of what your self-talk is. So everyone has an inner critic. Everyone, to a certain extent, has imposter syndrome. We all have these things, but when they come up, first you need to recognize that it's not you, it's a thought. So you need to take a moment, like, that's interesting. This is what always comes up when I'm in this place. I say something wrong and my inner critic just like lambasts me. So you're like, oh, here we are again. And then you need, to have something that you say to yourself. So thank you very much, but we're going to move on. We're going to let that go. Or, I am awesome and I know I'm going to do great. Take a breath and just jump right back in. Cool.
It's so hard when it's so personal, like every interview I've been on, I try to be logical, but there's that personal, and you just want it so bad, and it's like I'm already living in that role because I can already see that I'm going to be the right person for it. And I love what you said about grounding yourself with your feet, because it's almost like your head is the emotional part, but your feet is the logical part. And
Yeah.
if you can ground yourself and just take a breath, real quick, um, that's great.
Yeah, and I think Nancy put in like her own. I just saw something come up that looks
Oh,
good. So,
you. I quoted you back.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's each person I work with, we have our own kind of mantra, the self-talk that, again, to get grounded, to get centered, and then coming from this place of intention and being able to kind of call that out. So when you start getting activated, you need to figure out a way to co-regulate. And so, going to your feet, like you said, Emily, is a way to kind of co-regulate. The other reason I go to the feet is because I've worked in tech and I've worked with a lot of folks who are extremely bright. They're in their head. They do everything in their head, but I'm just trying to get them to get a little bit out of their head so they can get a little bit more centered. And so the furthest point from their head is their feet. So I'm like, let's go to your feet first. And some of my clients have said, I can't even feel my feet. I don't even, so it takes practice. So good. Any other thoughts or
Danielle has her hand raised, and then Nancy.
okay.
Thank you. I really appreciated hearing your example about being more proactive when answering questions. I think it comes up a lot in interviews where you get these situational things that they want you to address, and we're often looking at it as let me answer this question instead of thinking about let me answer maybe two questions in. Would love to just hear more examples and how to kind of think about that when you're in those situations, in those interview situations.
Yeah, the key thing in interview situations, and the question is how to make this pivot so you're addressing the question that the customer, or if you're in the interview process, that they're looking to have answered, but be able to kind of step it up so you become more of a partner to them or more strategic. And so the the fixed frame future, I feel like, is such a wonderful model. First of all, because it's just simple to remember, right? You really do want to fix. So you want to make sure you're addressing whatever the question is that the person is bringing to you, or the problem that they're bringing to you. But you also want to represent how you can actually be more of a strategic partner to them. And especially as you move up the, in your career, they're looking for someone that's oriented on bigger outcomes than just fixing what's at hand. And so I have a couple scenarios, but I think the fixed frame future is really the most important thing, if you can get that down. And I don't know, Emily, I don't know if will you send out the PowerPoint so they have that? Okay.
Yeah, so Jen put the link to the PowerPoint and
Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a pretty powerful model. And again, it's the pivot is really essential on the frame. So understanding what else there is. I will say that, certain customers or certain client folks that are interviewing might just throw it back to you and say, no, what I really want you to address right now is how you've been, give me some experiences of how you've shown up as a CSM. And so, you need to kind of handle that and kind of read the room on how you do that. But I think generally, most people really respect when you're able to show that you have a broader understanding of the business implications, and you're trying to help them solve even larger issues than just what the issue is that they're asking you about at this point.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. I think,
Nancy has a question.
yeah, Nancy.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to back to the breath part. I just wanted to just name a reflection about how breath is so simple but so powerful. And I hadn't really realized it until now that when I present to the company or to leadership, I often start breathing more in a more shallow way. And I'm kind of holding my breath until I finish what I have to say. And I had never considered what it might be like if I took a deeper breath when I'm on the spot. So it's like an exercise to practice next time. Actually, even right now, I'm still holding my breath while I talk to all of you. But anyway, I just needed to say it out loud because
No,
someone
I appreciate
might
that.
also be feeling that.
No, it's really, I, I've had presentation coaches. So when you're presenting, they'll have you. And one of the key things they always talk about when you're presenting in front of a group is to stop and take a breath. And so instead of running, back to back, like, okay, I know what I'm about to say, and then the next thing I'm about to say, but just slowing down enough, because also the key thing that you need to understand is there's a lot more information coming across than just what you're saying. And that's why I spend so much time with senior folk with their presence, because there's all kinds of other things that are being picked up as you talk. And so being able to slow down, be really centered and grounded can help you come across a lot more powerfully, and people will be more interested because they sense that you're really present with them. Yeah, your head's not somewhere else. Okay. Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. I totally resonates with me. I've had so many times where I've spoken and I've just tried to get it all out in one breath, and I'm like, why am I doing that? So we have Fran and then Virginia.
This is just one quick question, Doug. I went to your LinkedIn page and tried to sign up for a consultation, and it isn't working. I just wanted to let you know.
All right. Thank you.
So I'll be back when I'll sign up
All
as
right.
soon as it
No
works.
worries, no worries. I'll check that. Thanks for letting me know. And who else? There was someone else. Virginia?
Virginia.
Mhm.
So I had a question about like holding space when you're silent. So you mentioned like taking a breath, pausing, putting like a little bit of essentially white space in your conversation. I have a leadership team where if you breathe, that's the end of your floor time. So if you pause, somebody else is jumping in. So do you have any suggestions on how I continue to hold space while being in that zen, or like allowing I mean, quite frankly, allowing myself to breathe, but like allowing myself to like take some time, move a little bit more slowly without folks like running in and bulldozing through the conversation.
Wow, that's an interesting situation. So can you, so in the place, the culture where you work, the idea is you need to get as much out as possible. And if you take a break, other people are going to talk over you, basically. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, so as soon as there's like a lull in the conversation, or it sounds like somebody's coming to a breaking point, like the next person's already jumping in. It's a very listen to respond, not listen to learn kind of space. But I have to work in it, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out, how do I, if somebody asks a question and I sit and I want to, I don't know, think about it before I answer. That's not always received as thinking about something before answering. Sometimes it's perceived as not knowing. And then like the conversation just keeps going without my input or without a response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a really good question. I don't know if I have a great answer for you on that, Virginia, but the first
I might have just
okay, Jen. Yeah, go.
I used to have to work with a very difficult client. I'll just they were a very difficult technical team, and they interrupted constantly, and they were very they every second was, so I understand what you're saying. And a lot of times what we would do first is you have to be very strong in that conversation. And so it's like, I'm not finished yet. I have one more point to make. Sometimes if that does happen before you're able to regain, so you do want to vocalize like, I'm not done yet. I just need another minute. I was just taking a breath. And then kind of like vocalize what you're actually doing, since if you're on a call. And then if you feel the need to do it, I would vocalize it as well ahead of time if you're able to say, just give me a second. I'm just thinking about your question so I can answer it. And kind of take your moment there. But yeah, if you're working with very strong-willed, impolite people, then yeah, you do have to, and you have to fight for your time too. I realized that with the client as well. We had to say, let me finish, 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 in order to finish the thought. Because as soon as you pause between a word or a comma, if you will, just proper kind of discussion, yeah, it was a challenge. So that seemed to help me in a challenging situation. I don't know if that helps Doug kind of think about like other ways to.
No, that was really great, Jen. That was kind of the direction I was going to go, Virginia. That first of all, the key to me is being really in your power. So we're talking about a number of different ways that you're establishing presence. But part of what I'm trying to help you do is come into your power. Like, I'm it, and I'm here. I deserve to be here, right? And this can be in an interview or with a client. You're like, I am here, and so don't mess with me, sort of. And if someone does talk over you, you can still be polite, but say, I'm not done yet, or you need to give me a minute. Thank you very much. Take a breath and go back into it. But again, it's having that presence not to be walked over. And then if they try to talk over you, jump in and say, hey, I haven't completed what I wanted to say. So I don't know in your culture if that will work, but that would be kind of in your body first, and then be really clear and don't let them speak over you.
I will give that a try. Thank you both.
Yeah.
A great question, Virginia. We have 1 minute left. Is there any last thoughts or last questions or just reflections anybody else has? All right.
Do we have a survey for this call?
Sorry, Dan?
Sorry, I was just remembering. Do we have a survey for this call or no?
We do. It'll
Okay.
come out, and I'm so glad you said that because I've forgotten it every single time. I told you we're not making any mistakes this one. So far, none. So when we close up, there'll be an email that goes out automatically just asking for your feedback. So please do fill out that survey. Jen and I look at every single one and take them very seriously, and we have improved every single event that we've had. So please do fill that out. And thank you all for your time. I know that time is valuable, especially during end of quarter. This was an hour out of your time, and I really appreciate it. And Doug, thank you so much. I know this was your time that you spent, and I loved being able to work with you again on this, and look forward to continuing our friendship.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.